Good morning, Manchester, or should I say good evening. We're taping in the afternoon, or it's the early morning. I'm having a little difficulty with time today. And my guests today are Bonnie Wright
Hi.
and Michelle Lecuyer.
Yes.
Did I get it right?
Pretty close, Lecuyer.
And we're talking about the March Against Monsanto that is going to be held, Bonnie,
It will be taking place on Saturday.
Saturday.
We have 4 places in New Hampshire that it's going to be happening. Michelle and I will both be at the Concord event at the State House at 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock.
There are also events happening in Littleton, Rochester, and Portsmouth. So there's really 4 places for people to be able to go to. We have them all listed on the Facebook page, March Against Monsanto,
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire.
And
And if you're not on Facebook, we also have them on the website for New Hampshire Right to Know GMO.
Right. And why is it's this the March Against Monsanto, New Hampshire? There's a reason for that, isn't there? Because there's March Against Monsanto, Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont. This is not only even a national event, it's an international event, isn't it?
yes, it is. And there's, I believe, going to be 26 countries that are going to be participating, and it's going to be in 438 cities around the globe.
And I know in the European Union that are fighting tooth and nail against Monsanto. And we had my guest, remember Tom Massingale, who my friend from London, talking about how Monsanto, via the U.S. government, is trying to force the GMO foods onto the EU. Which means when you say force the GMO foods, you're forcing Monsanto into their market. Isn't that correct?
Well, they're forcing Monsanto, but also all of the Grocery Manufacturers Association. And we're a little bit annoyed with those folks. They have been fighting against having this food that has been introduced in our food supply without our knowledge, without our acceptance. If you read the book Altered Genes, Twisted Truth by Stephen Drucker, it has been introduced into our foods illegally.
And, you know, that's the thing there, is that was 20 years ago when that was introduced, GMO foods.
Right. One of the interesting things, as Tom explained, the President Obama appointed as head of the, I think it's the FDA or the Department of Agriculture, the person that would oversee GMO foods, the chief Monsanto lobbyist we had this in another show, 20 years of, the revolving door between Monsanto and the Department of Agriculture, and actually wrote the paper creating the intellectual, floor or philosophy for putting through these GMO foods. Because as we explained on our shows earlier, these foods, as much as they say that they are not, this is a great one, I don't want your MGO. For us people that were brought up with Dr. Seuss, I do not like you, Monsanto. These foods are not normal foods, are they? They actually affect the bacteria, not only the soil that they're grown in, but the bacteria in our gut, don't they?
We believe they do. Scientists are still debating all of this. We don't have a inconclusive study, but all evidence is there. We just can't get everybody to accept that.
One of the reasons there's inconclusive evidence is because we had a slideshow, is that the government and the industry doesn't actually promote they don't actually use or require the scientific protocols that could prove or disprove it, for the very reason that we're talking. This is my opinion, because of that revolving door and the political clout of Monsanto that can use the government to try to force themselves onto the EU and their own pure food laws, that there hasn't been the type of scientific research that exists even in the pharmaceutical industry. They don't use the protocols the pharmaceutical industry does. And one of the things, and then I'll turn it over to you, the power of the food industry in the country is incredible. They took Oprah Winfrey to court in Texas. Texas has food libel law. And there are food libel laws where Oprah Winfrey had on her show Richard Rhodes, a Pulitzer Prize winner, a very fine writer. I've read his books about the atomic bomb, the hydrogen bomb. Dark Sun, he won the Pulitzer Prize. He wrote a book about the meat industry in America. This is separate than GMO, but that the conditions that existed in England that created mad cow disease
Okay, folks.
exist in the United States. And that book, from a Pulitzer Prize winner, a best-selling writer, got no press. Oprah puts him on. She sued in Texas. The First Amendment wasn't a defense. It cost her, I think, over $2 million to defend herself. And interestingly, that issue's not brought up. And my brother, who's career military in England, he can't give blood in the United States because he's eating meat in England. So we're just talking about the incredible power of the food industry. But Monsanto is a chemical company, but now it's like colonized or taken over the food industry.
Monsanto makes the chemicals, and they make the seeds. They make the seeds so that they resist the chemicals that the seeds resist the chemicals that Monsanto makes. So they're not only controlling the seed supply, they're also controlling the chemicals that are used to grow these seeds. The seeds are planted, they're dosed with heavy applications of Roundup, or there are now several other herbicides that have just been introduced. And so they're making... They're really controlling our food supply, and we don't have any say. We have very little knowledge for certain what they're doing exactly, and what it is doing to us. So many of us feel we have the right to know what we're eating. We want the foods labeled, maybe other things, but let's start with labeling the food so we can choose whether or not we want to eat it. They did it in Europe, and they're saying it's going to cost us money to do this. There are a number of studies. The latest and greatest one came out from Consumer Union, part of Consumer Reports. They say it's going to cost the average family under $3 per year per person to have the foods labeled. When they introduced it in Europe, there was no change in price. And in fact, you can get Kellogg's cornflakes made in this country with genetically engineered foods and compare it to the Kellogg's cornflakes made in Europe, made here for sale in Europe, where they have changed the formula. It doesn't include the genetically engineered corn. It's shipped from here over to Europe, and they sell it for less there than we buy it here. Figure that one out.
Yeah, it's like I said, they're using the clout of the U.S. government, Monsanto, through their powerful lobbying effort. And Obama put the chief Monsanto lobbyist in control of this. They virtually initiated a trade war with the EU over this. But one of the things we brought up, once again, to show the seriousness of this, was another Monsanto product called bovine somatropin. It's the synthetic hormone used to boost the production of milk in cows. It's banned in virtually every country in the OECD, the industrialized world. Why is that? I remember writing, when I was working on a business intelligence base in California, about the scandal, the Canadian FDA scandal. The Canadians always believe, good government, we're better than Americans. And they were shocked to their core by this scandal. It turned out the Canadian FDA approved BST, bovine somatropin, and it turned out they had been bribed, the officials. Monsanto bribed them because Monsanto's own research showed BST was a carcinogen. Guess what, folks? At the same time, this story in Canada is all over the press. It humiliated their pride. It was a huge scandal. It's approved in the United States. So when you go over that border from New Hampshire and to Quebec, for some reason, the very chemical and the milk that's is not a carcinogen in the United States suddenly and miraculously is a carcinogen and is banned. That's the power Monsanto has. It has it in the United States. It didn't have it in Canada. It doesn't have it in the EU. But it's a strange thing. The federal government is, like we said, Obama appointed the chief lobbyist who, as a scientist, actually came up with all the, like we're saying, the protocols that are much less than the pharmaceutical industry to push this on, to legitimate it. It's quite a scandal. It's a scandal in Canada 15 years ago. Why isn't it a scandal now? Why isn't this, the press more focused on this? I'll give you a reason. We'll go back to Richard Rhodes and Oprah. Think about how powerful Oprah Winfrey was in our generation. Food industry is the biggest advertiser in the media.
Well, GMOs are not labeled in the United States. Hopefully very soon they will be in the state of Vermont.
Oh, they've already...
Vermont has passed their law.
And it passed the case, too, the court.
Well, the court case is still ongoing.
Oh, I thought they passed
they were the state of Vermont was sued by the grocery manufacturers. The judge has ruled that the case can move forward and that the state can require food to be labeled as of July 1st, 2016. They also ruled in another part of that case that the interstate commerce rule was looking good, the judge would not dismiss that case. So it will probably still go to trial, but it is looking very, very good for the state of Vermont. They would be the first state to actually have a labeling bill enacted. They do have labeling bills in Europe and Syria and Russia, China. They have either labeling or banning rules. And 64 other countries, 2/3 of the world, all industrialized countries except the United States and Canada. So...
Oh, even Canada.
Canada does not have a labeling.
Harper, they have a Tory government now. When it happened, the 2000 scandal, that was Jean Chrétien, the Liberal government, a centrist government. So Harper, the Tory. So Monsanto finally has colonized Canada.
So
maybe when I'm up there, I won't drink the milk.
We are entitled to have it labeled. Right now, we have a couple of things going on that are going to make it difficult. We have a bill in Congress right now. It is H.R. 1599. We call it the DARK Act, D-A-R-K, for Deny Americans the Right to Know. It was introduced to prevent states like Vermont from moving forward. It will keep any state from having their own labeling law. It makes it difficult for the federal government to have a labeling law. And it encourages it rules that FDA must define natural, and they're pushing the FDA to say that GMOs, or genetically engineered foods, are natural.
And they're anything but.
Anything but.
We had an earlier show where, because of the genome sequencing, they're not even quite sure what it is. Mm-hmm. And the thing about Monsanto, Monsanto Ready Foods, they are genetically engineered to actually incorporate, to welcome Roundup. And essentially when you get a product, and only 80% of the grain products sold now in processed foods in the United States, it is Roundup ready. That means it's been changed, and it has this chemical in it that you can't wash off.
You can't
wash it off. It's not like, we were told to wash our apples during various food scares or anything, or rub, It used to be,
It gets into the ground and the roots
You also
absorb
have
it. The
yeah.
glyphosate was just ruled by
Right.
the WHO as a probable carcinogen, the second highest level that it can be.
Roundup, which is glyphosate,
And so we're
is a
eating.
carcinogen.
It's been found in Fruit Loops. It's been found in other foods.
It's been
we
found
know we're
in
eating
breast
it.
milk from
in
people.
breast milk,
Yep.
urine. So it's there. We're eating it, and this is not a good thing. So the Dark Act is going to try and prevent it. We urge people to contact their legislators in D.C. and say, don't support it. We know Annie Custer is fully supportive against it. She supported a bill called H.R. 913, which is a safe requiring mandatory labeling. Senator Jean Shaheen supported S. 511, which is the companion bill to that. But we need to get the others on board to not support the Dark Act or H. 1599, and we want them to support these other two bills. We also have the TPP coming up.
Right.
Probably.
Well, we could have you back for another show. So we got only about 4 minutes left.
Okay.
And why don't you tell about your organizations and how people can join in beyond just the march?
Well, New Hampshire Right to Know GMO is a grassroots group. We have a Facebook page and a website. Check us out.
And this isn't just an issue that's just for Democrats.
This is a bipartisan
Yeah,
issue.
you have people
everybody
from everybody.
eats. It shouldn't be
and you
one
have
party or
people
another.
in the group that from over the spectrum too.
Yeah. If you have any questions, feel free to email info@nhrighttonowgmo.org. The website is nhrighttonowgmo.org. Website is Facebook is NH Right to Know GMO.
Go to Ward 13 with Jon Hopwood, the Facebook page, and we'll have that put up.
Excellent.
We got a few.
And then
yeah.
March Against Monsanto.
Yes, so March Against Monsanto, we would invite folks to check us out on Facebook at March Against Monsanto, New Hampshire. We have an event page, and we also have a group page. And so we would really encourage your viewers to come and visit us to check out the event page, but also if you want to get involved with other activists, to find us on Facebook and join our group.
Okay. And I hear John O'Neill's, we haven't been signaled, so we still got some more time. How important is this? Why are you so passionate about this? Why? I know why I am, but, you know.
I have grandkids. I want my grandkids to be able to grow up. We're finding, can't prove it in humans, but in animals, that they're having less less babies. Babies are deformed. I want my grandkids.
The fertility problems.
Fertility issues are huge. And you look at the human fertility issues, they're growing like crazy. We've had this food in our diet for 20 years. Look at what has happened to Americans' diet over the last 20 years. We're going, we're no longer the leader in the world. We're way down on that list. And there's got to be some reason, and many of us believe it's what we're eating, and it's the genetically engineered ingredients and the herbicides used with it that is impacting us.
Well, one thing that's so amazing that I just realized talking to you is the U.S. is the biggest exporter of grains, food grains in the world. Now I'm suddenly starting to realize those reports, because I follow business, why suddenly Australia and Canada until recently, now I'm hearing this, they're making huge inroads. Like certain countries are not importing our grains.
Well,
And
China is huge.
Yeah, I'm starting to understand why suddenly. You know, we fed the world. Remember, that was our big clout in the Cold War, which I was a warrior in, against the Soviet Union. You could. The grain sales from the United States. Now I'm sure the European Union stuff probably don't want our foods because they've been adulterated.
Well, in last year, Russia banned GMOs. They said this. It was a direct quote from President Putin.
Vladimir Putin. Oh, we call him Tsar Putin on this show.
The Tsar. Well, the Tsar said, we don't. If the United States wants to eat GMOs, let them. We don't need to. We have plenty of organic land. So even in Russia, it's not that labeling is required. They've outright banned it in Russia.
Well, another issue we could talk about is global warming, and suddenly the tundra is opening up in the former USSR, and they're going to be able to grow their grain, although most of the stuff comes from Ukraine. So we've had shows about that, about Ukraine.
One of the things that groups like New Hampshire Right to Know GMO and by events such as March Against Monsanto, we're spreading awareness. People are changing the way they eat. We're suddenly finding that we don't have enough organic grain in this country to satisfy the demand. We are bringing grain in from other countries to keep up with the demand.
Isn't that incredible? Suddenly the greatest food basket in the world suddenly has to bring in a product that people want. We only have 1 minute. I'd like to sum up. It's about democracy. It's about the right to know. And it's a fundamental right to know what goes into your food and to be able to control your life in a way you'd like to. These battles were fought back in the Teddy Roosevelt administration, and they had a hostile Supreme Court then, and they're finally settled with Franklin Roosevelt, his fourth cousin. These issues were battled out. Now suddenly we're just going back to the era that Upton Sinclair talked about in his, like the novels The Jungle. They're adulterating our foods. They're importing drugs, generic drugs from India and China that have no regulation at all, which are, a lot of them are just, they're inert. There are lawsuits about these generics from like India and China that are working their way through the federal courts because you're taking pills, being charging them to Medicare or Medicaid, and they don't really work because the United States, with its policy of free trade and China making it cheap in China and India, it said they were going to put the FDA over in China and India. We can't even trust our own FDA right now. It's a matter of civil rights, I would say. Do you agree that you have the right to control your life? And it's a principle of the common law of England. I'm a legal editor. I should have become a lawyer like my father said, so I wouldn't have wound up in a low-income bracket all my life. But it's a principle, settled principle over 1,000 years of the English common law. You have a right what goes into your body. That it can't be violated.
And that right has been taken away from us.
It is being taken away unless we do something about it. Well, Bonnie and Michelle, thank you very much. And I'd like to have you back on the show, and we can talk about TPP.
Would love to.
Can we encourage folks just to come down? One more plug for March Against Monsanto this Saturday in Concord at 11.
Yes,
and
we can.
if you can bring we're collecting food for the food pantry.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Manchester. And we'll see you next week on Ward 10. And look out, we're going to have a special, a May Day special with Mike Lopez. May Day, Memorial Day. Maybe we can recut that.